What I'd like to do in our next session is hopefully scare the living crap out of you for a little while. No. We're going to talk to you about a growth industry. Normally we talk about growth industry as positive things. Unfortunately, in this case, I'm not sure we'd see it that way. And that is the growing industry of cyber risk and cyber attacks, which are coming after your supply chains. And what you can do, importantly, to mitigate this, to avoid this. We have a leader in this space who is part of a very interesting organization at Nissan you're going to hear about in a moment. In terms of really driving cybersecurity, cyber resilience from the supply chain. You're only as strong as your weakest link in this case, and we're going to find out more about that. And I think it's really interesting, worth saying right at the outset, I'm sure every one of your companies has some form of cybersecurity protocol systems, perhaps led by your IT. What we really want to talk about here is why it's so important to have a cybersecurity approach and resilience plan from supply chain management, from your logistics team, and what advantages that can bring. And I think it's going to be really interesting for you to get a sense of this. So I'm really happy to introduce our next speaker, who did spend a good chunk of his career up to now on the IT and IS side, before coming to, I don't know if it's the dark side or the light side, we can let you be the judge of that, into the supply chain management group. Gerardo made some reference to this already yesterday, and for the past few years, he's really been helping to lead and build that cyber resilience and cyber security from supply chain management point of view. Very pleased to welcome Eric Elliott from Nissan. Eric. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, sir.
It's all yours.
All right, very good. All right, thank you all. My name is Eric Elliott. As Chris said, I've been at Nissan for roughly 12 years in the IT department. Moved over into the cybersecurity role a couple of years ago and been running it ever since. That's not me. That is 2 pictures uploaded into ChatGPT and told to create a corporate image. So just kind of leading into all the AI talk and everything. I showed this to my son. He told me that looked like a much better looking younger version of myself. And I reminded him that I paid for his tuition. So he immediately thought better of it. But we'll dive right in. So cybersecurity threats in the auto industry. Why are we here? Why are we even talking about that today? There's a myriad of reasons that cybersecurity we should care about cybersecurity from an auto industry perspective. Data breach, customer information, that is the most popular one. That's the one that everybody hears about. Unauthorized access to sensitive data. Getting that data, personal information, confidential corporate information, and it's just damning, right? That information gets out, it gets leaked, and it just causes reputational damage to your organization. Connected vehicle vulnerabilities, that is one that we have started hearing more and more about. Essentially, as the vehicles start getting more connected, as there's more technology in the vehicles, there's more avenues for the bad guys to get in there and gain control of the vehicle. They can unlock the cars, they can take control of it, they can get your driving information. So there's a mix of PII mixed in there as well. Ransomware on manufacturing systems is one that we've started to see more and more, and we'll talk about OT environments a little bit later, but we've started to see ransomware on manufacturing systems that has started happening a lot more here recently, and that's getting into manufacturing systems, encrypting critical information, shutting them down, causing downtime, causing safety hazards. And then, fun fact, with ransomware attacks, a lot of times when you pay it, you still don't get your information back. You still don't get your computer systems back. You're just out millions of dollars. So insider threats, social engineering, this is one that sometimes is on purpose and sometimes not on purpose, right? It's phishing attacks. It's things that come in your email and you happen to be clicked on your VPN and the bad guys are able to get into your computer and they can traverse around the network and just grant access to systems that you have access to that you never knew happened. And then supply chain attacks. And that's where we're going to talk about a good bit today. And that is essentially cyber criminals getting into your third-party vendors, your third-party suppliers, and then getting into your network and being able to do bad things once they get there. So why are we talking about that at this conference, right? You can see here, 55% of the cyber attacks happen in the US. Christopher and our UK friends, you're not left behind. 6% happen in UK, 3% in Germany, 2% in France, and goes on and on and on. So why is the reason of that? As you probably know, the US is not so popular on the global stage right now. First quarter of this year, we've had a lot of ransomware attacks happen in the US. It has grown exponentially, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. So also, why are we talking about this at this conference? Manufacturing. Q1 2025, the number 1 and the number 3 most impacted industries from a cyber perspective are manufacturing and technology. So that's why we're talking about this today. So let's talk about the sophistication of cyber attacks. The sophistication is getting more and more, they're just able to exploit things in a greater scale at this point. Time travel. The bad guys are able to get into your network, get into your servers, get into your own machine, and change the timestamps in there and install outdated software there where they can get in and manipulate your system. Disinformation, hybrid. This is one that we're starting hearing a lot more about. It's exploits social engineering to coax people into things. These are a lot of the deep fakes, like that super handsome guy that you saw earlier that wasn't me. You mix that in with some voice synthesis. And that happens more and more and more, even on Zoom calls. They're able to get in, manipulate the voice, manipulate the image on Zoom calls. We're starting to see that more and more. Cloud-based. You assume things are happy and safe once they get into the cloud, and they're not, right? The cloud is just somebody else's software, somebody else's hardware, and there's still vulnerabilities to get in there, and they're getting more and more vulnerable to attack. Third-party backdoor. Connected third parties, infiltrations getting in there. AI-powered phishing. This is one, once you start talking about the phishing attacks, and they're able to get into your social networks and find out names, find out family names, find out who you work with, who you work for, and personalize that into a very convincing email. And at the bottom here, when we talk about cybersecurity is really turning into an AI-driven chess match. When you talk about the Tenables and the Turniums and the CrowdStrikes of the world, they're utilizing AI just like the bad guys are utilizing AI. So it's a chess match, right? It's a green lightsaber versus a red lightsaber. It's Vader and Luke battling it out. A lot of this stuff happens in the background that you don't even know about. So just kind of a fun fact here. I thought it interesting when you start talking about the AI-powered phishing attacks. PDFs are 45% of where the cyber attacks on your personal machines come from. The way PDFs are put together, they have a very complex structure, and you're able to embed malicious software, malicious hardware in there. So if something looks weird and it comes in with a PDF attached, that's when your spidey senses should tingle a little bit. So we'll get into a little bit of our program and what we've put together. So in 2021, cybercrime totaled $6 trillion, anticipated to be over $10.5 trillion this year. And global conditions continue to feed cybercrimes. Like I said earlier, the US is not number 1 on a lot of Christmas mailing card lists these days. Geopolitical problems, tariffs, strikes, it's just continuing to feed the cybercrimes. And the Russias and the Chinas and the Syrias and the North Koreans know that. And I mean, that's no secret. That's the top 4. They're coming in to get your information, to steal your intellectual property, to get what they can from you. There's been 47% growth in the frequency and the sophistication of cyber attacks in the Q1 of this year. So January, February, March of this year has grown 47% to an estimated $10.5 trillion industry. So that tells you that nothing is slowing down. This is going to continue to increase, and that's why we have to continue to keep our guard up. Suppliers continue to experience severe cyber attacks. We at Nissan, my team's responsibility is for the Americas region. So we have US, any supplier or vendor that feeds parts to the US, Mexico, or Brazil, is kind of under our oversight. So we've got 1,500 suppliers roughly. We're averaging minimum once a week that a supplier has some kind of cyber attack, either self-reported to us or alerted from one of our third-party monitoring tools. And we'll look at that more in just a bit. So some of those are just an email to understand the impact. Some of them are full-on potential shutdown risks that we have to have some kind of action and respond to. And obviously, expedited freight, manual actions, plant downtime, all create manufacturing risks. We're trying to get more proactive with what we're doing, right? There's a lot of adrenaline to firefighting whenever something like this comes in, but there's no cost savings in firefighting. So the more proactive that we can get is what we're working on. And this is where we launched this cybersecurity risk program 2 years ago. So let's talk about the pillars of cybersecurity. And this is a program that we put together. Again, this started in FY23. We're going into our third year. We started very slow. We started working on the assessments. And this is essentially just sending questionnaires out to the suppliers to understand what their cybersecurity resilience is. Then, as we grew, we started doing monitoring. We've got tools in place that we can actively monitor our suppliers and understand where the risks are, where the problems are, when the alerts come in. And then last, the response. Before we started working within this program, cybersecurity issues were handled by whoever happened to get the alert. It might have been somebody in our InfoSec team, it might have been somebody in inventory control, it might have been somebody in logistics, and it was not reacted to in a coordinated fashion. We came in, we put together a plan, a playbook, as Gerardo talked about yesterday, on the cyber side, very cross-functional, to understand how do we act within the region when something happens, what do we do, who do we talk to, what's the severity, who at each plant do we talk to, and just put together and form a plan around that. We'll talk about that a bit more in just a second. So the assessments, that is kind of the first line of defense. We've grown this over time. In FY23, we did roughly 28, 29 assessments. Last year, we did a little over 40. This year, we have estimated to do over 100 assessments with different suppliers. And we do those by criticality. I'm not rehashing some of what Gerardo talked about yesterday. He stole a little of my thunder, but that's okay, Gerardo. We're good. But essentially, depending on the criticality to Nissan and the cyber risk is the type of assessment that they get. If they're up there in that top quadrant, that top red, where they're very critical to Nissan and they're a high security risk, they get the high risk NIST-based assessment. And NIST is just a cybersecurity framework. You never get authorized or certified in NIST. It's a best practice, for lack of a better term. The high risk, 117 questions. We go on site, we sit in front of the supplier, we look at all their documentation, we look at all their policy, we look at all their training, just to understand overall their capabilities to protect themselves from a policy perspective, a technology perspective, and a training perspective. If they're medium risk, if they're kind of in that yellow area, they get a little bit lower of assessment. It's 89 questions. Our team takes a look at it, and there's some documentation reviewed, not all documentation reviewed, but we do look at their overarching policy documents. We look to make sure that they're able to protect themselves. And then the low risk, that's the guys down on the green that are either low risk from a criticality perspective or low risk from a cybersecurity perspective. Those are the ones that kind of get a pulse check, right? We do send the assessment out, we look at it, we review it. We don't look at any documentation, but we do review it and understand at a high level what their capabilities are to protect themselves. And then after the assessment, a final report is created. We're not just looking at a thumbs up and going away. We create a formalized report, and we work with them over time to remediate their issues. And I think that's one thing that we have found that has been very well accepted from our suppliers is not only do we send the assessment out and we grade their homework, we help them to correct their homework. We work with them over time. We have remediation calls. If they have critical issues that are outstanding, we talk to them every 30 days. Medium risk issues that are outstanding every 60 days, low risk every 90 days. So we work with them over time, and we want to see kind of the bottom two charts there. We want to see how they're incrementally improving. We're not in the business of assessment or scoring or certifications. We're in the business of lowering risk. And that's essentially what we want to do, right? We want to raise the water level overall of our supply chain to just create a safer cyber environment for everyone. We talked a little bit about the tools for monitoring. The first tool over to the left, and I'm not going to name vendor names. If you want to get with me after this, we can talk vendor names. But essentially, the first tool to the left, we have a tool in place that monitors for all external threats. So it monitors for weather, geopolitical, trade, tariff, hurricanes, anything like that. But it also monitors for cyber incidents, and we get alerted to that. On the right is a specific cybersecurity tool that we utilize. And what that guy does is it's not, I'm not going to nerd out, but it's not true penetration testing that your IS team or your CISOs would do. But it is the ability to see from an external perspective, looking at the external web address, looking at IP addresses, looking at things like that, where the vulnerabilities may be. So it's essentially seeing all of the things that the bad guys can see. And they can point out the exploits. They can point out the open FTP ports. They can open up anything that might give an avenue for a bad actor, for a bad guy, to be able to get into your system. And then in the middle, we do work very closely with our Nissan InfoSec team. They've got tools, advanced tools, dark web monitoring, and all this secret ninja level stuff that they're able to utilize to see things. And then we've got a very close relationship with them, and they are able to feed us that information as well. And the playbook, and I'm going to spend a little more time on the playbook because I think this is very important. This is one of the first things that we put together as we started to mature our program. To be able to understand how to react whenever a cyber event came in, be it something large scale or small scale. So an event comes in, it comes to my team, we take a look at it, we see if it's legit, we work with the supplier to understand what the scope of the issue might be. So it may be very minor. It may be just a server was breached, it was controlled, and there's no issue. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, systems are down, we can't produce, we can't ship, we can't do anything, we're dead in the water. That's where this playbook is important. We know across the organization, across the Americas region, from every plant in Mexico to every plant in the US, and soon to come, our Brazil friends, a formalized plan for any time an alert comes in, when it's reported, who we work with. We work with our inventory control team to understand what the inventory levels are. If the inventory levels are lower, we've got to expedite. We call in our logistics friends, Yvonne and his team. They come in and they expedite shipments or whatever needs to be done there. We work with our IS SCM team. He's a good-looking gentleman right back here in the back. They check into the systems and make sure that everything is in place, that we don't have any live connections or anything like that that could be impacted. Work with the manufacturing floor team to see if there's any live connections to the manufacturing floor. And depending on the scope of it, we work with our legal. We work with our corporate communications. We work with our purchasing team, depending on the size and the scope. Luckily, we don't get into those situations very often that we need to call in the big guns of legal, but we have that avenue in place and we have it documented, and we know whenever something like that happens, where to go, who to go to, and make it repeatable every time. So just some observations that we have seen, and this is not global observations or anything across the world. This is things that our team has seen, observed from a supplier perspective, where most of the vulnerabilities are at consistently. The first one is operational technology. That is something that is very commonly overlooked because most of the time it's not under InfoSec control. It's not under your typical IS. It's the guys that handle the robotics and the guys that handle the plant floor systems. And those guys are not necessarily always focused on cybersecurity. In the past, that has been something that has always been considered, well, this is, can I put there, this is just a dumb PLC, or we're in a secure network, it's within the four walls of the facility, there's no way we can be infiltrated. If there's a possibility of a repair technician coming in with a USB key, or a network connection coming in for system upgrades or anything, they're vulnerable. And that is an attack vector that is being breached more and more often these days, especially to get in, to lock those manufacturing systems down, ransomware attacks, pay us $1 million or you want to get your system back. The one on the right is kind of where our happy place is, and that's third-party monitoring. And this has essentially not been a high priority for most corporations. They do a really good job of protecting themselves, but when you start talking about that external threat vector, they've never really done a lot, really focused on it, right? They've done some checks, checked the boxes, but there's not a lot of focus that have been put there. If you look here to the top right, that is the top trended avenue for cyber breaches in 2024 and 2025 are third-party breaches. And these are always the most difficult to secure since they're outside of your information system team control. So, I'm not a graphic design artist, so don't make fun or point or laugh, but think about your corporate protection, right? This is your information or your InfoSec team controlling your own house. They generally do a good job. I mean, we work with some suppliers that are smaller suppliers that may have a small team, and there's lots of opportunities for improvement, but most companies have a certain level of internal protection in place to be able to protect their own house. But what happens when you start throwing the other parts in there, the ones that you can't control? You start throwing your suppliers in there, your transportation suppliers, your air freight, your ocean freight. You have no control over those. And you have live connections. There's live connections there. What do? There's no way to connect it. You can protect your own house, but you cannot protect what's happening at those third parties. Corporate protection protects the house. Third-party protection protects the externals. And that's kind of what we've talked about. Putting the assessments in place to be able to understand where the vulnerabilities are from your suppliers and being able to help them to understand where the controls are missed, how they can improve themselves. And then the monitoring. It doesn't matter if there are no controls that are missed and everything is in place. Nobody is bulletproof from a cyber perspective. But if you have proper policy in place to be able to recover quickly, if you got the threat detection in place to be able to find those issues quickly, essentially that's the best that you can do from a third-party perspective to be able to monitor. And that's really where our program was put into place, to be able to put those safeguards in place to monitor our third parties, to help them to evolve, and just to raise the overall water level from a external monitoring perspective. So how do we protect our organization? Again, I'm not going to geek out. I'm not going to start talking about cool ways of firewalls or anything like that, but what can we do to protect our organization? One is exactly that. Find some way to assess your high criticality suppliers. Even if you don't do assessments with all, understand who your highly critical suppliers are. Talk to them, understand what the controls are, understand what they have in place. Find some way to do some type of formal assessment of their ability to protect themselves. And when I say assessment, I mean it. We found going into this as an assessment, not looking for a certification. We just want to understand where things are in your capability. It's not an audit. Audit has a bad connotation, right? But if you say an assessment, we just want to work with you. It's the fig leaf, right? And it's much better receptive. Contractual safeguards include clauses in your contracts, right to audit contracts. That's one thing that we had to work on ourselves. Luckily, we've not had a lot of suppliers that have just given us the old stiff arm and said they don't want to work with us. Now, some suppliers have said, we don't want to send you our documentation, it's proprietary and things like that. But we go to it and we say, well, okay, don't send it to us. Just show it to us on the screen. Let us look at it. Let us audit it. We've got a team, a staff that is highly trained in this, and we've done over 115 of these assessments with different suppliers. So we have the ability, we have the capability, we have the expertise to understand if you're doing a good job to protect yourself and offer up suggestions for improvements. Continuous monitoring. Implement some kind of tools out there, or implement some kind of tools to be able to understand where your third-party connections are at and to be able to monitor that. Again, I think it's, there are a lot of companies out there, a lot of SaaS companies out there that do this. I think it's important. I think it's important to monitor on a real-time basis. Again, even if it's your highly critical suppliers, put something in place to be able to understand where they are in a real-time basis. Employee training, usually your InfoSec team or someone, HR will send out regularly occurring InfoSec or security training, cybersecurity trainings, but foster that within our own organization. Make sure that everybody knows it's important and not just a check-the-box type of activity, because these are really things that could shut you down. One of the suppliers that we worked with, again, not going to name names, they had done some level of security training. They were infected by a significant cyber attack. And the only thing that kept them from being down for months was they had an Active Directory server in Singapore that was offline. How did that happen? Some guy in a remote office was hooked into the VPN and clicked on a phishing email. And essentially that came in, it went through the network, ransomware, shut them down. Luckily for the guys in Singapore, it was a 911 call to them. Do not bring anything back up, right? And the last one, if we don't take anything else away, is continuity planning. Have a plan. Define what your critical systems are. Define who you need to talk to whenever something happens, and understand how to react. Know when to call, know who to call, and just start thinking about it. How would I run? How would I continue to run if all these critical systems went away? What would I do? Put a plan in place, get it agreed to across the organization, and test the plan occasionally. It's the best way to protect yourself. And I thank you guys for the time today.